Hey everyone, back tuning into the 9th Winter 2015-2016 update from GasWeathers.com. We're going to get various things together again for this 9th update as we have done for the previous 8 updates. So we're going to be looking at solar activity, sea surface temperature anomalies, Siberian snow cover, all the things that we've been looking at over the past few weeks and months since the beginning of September. And particularly this update will be focusing on the QBO, the quasi-biennial oscillation, combined with El Niño, because we've got some very interesting information from our good friend Stuart Markham from the website chillyweather.com. So I'll talk you through all of the information in a moment. We're getting very close now towards the crunch. This is the penultimate update, can you believe? So I've only got one more winter update to do next week, and then after that, week after that, on Sunday 29th, we'll do the final winter 2015-2016 seasonal model roundup, and then it'll all be brought together, all of these updates and the seasonal model updates, it'll all come together on the 1st of December, Tuesday the 1st of December, for the GasWeathers.com winter 2015-2016 forecast. So we really are getting towards the crunch now with these updates, and things are getting pretty hairy for me, actually, because I've got to start coming up with some definitive answers. There's been a lot of questions posed about this coming winter, but not a huge number of answers, and I really have got to start answering those questions certainly by the 1st of December. Anyway, we'll get on with the 9th update in a second, but before I get on with that, just say about the ads. This week's articles on the page of GasWeathers. Have a browse which is and click through the links with any articles that you're interested in, and thanks very much for doing that. There's video ads on most of the page. They open out with content. When you watch them, they'll close back up again. It's all helping to pay for the website. And the Christmas shop is open, so if you've got any Christmas shopping to do at Amazon between now and Christmas, all you have to do is click through the Amazon banners in the Christmas shop. The button to the Christmas shop is underneath this video, by the way, on the home page. So just click through the Amazon banners in the Christmas shop. Because you're going from GasWeathers to Amazon, you just do your Christmas shopping as normal once you've gone through GasWeathers to Amazon. But because you've made that progression from our website to theirs, we get a review fee on the things that you are purchasing. So thanks so much for doing that, and happy Christmas shopping if that is indeed what you want to do after this update. Just so I've got a little bit of a tickle in my throat. These long videos that we do this time of year, they sort of take their toll a bit on my voice and my throat, so I may have to have a bit of a cough, and I've also got my water with me as well, so I hope you bear with me if I have to just stop and have a bit of a drink of water to moisten the vocal cords. Right, let's get on with the 9th update, man. I'm going to start off with the oceans, as we always do. This is the sea surface temperature anomaly map for the world from NOAA. And we've got the Atlantic, of course, and the Pacific Oceans. There are the two oceans, but we're particularly interested in the Atlantic over here, and we're really interested in the Northern Atlantic in terms of this cold blob. And then we've got the Pacific over here. What we're looking at here is the northeast part of the Pacific, and also the El Niño region, which takes us from Peru over towards Indonesia. When you get this warm signature here through the central part of the actual Pacific, that is the signal for El Niño. So feast your eyes on that chart first of all, because that was the situation last week when we did the 8th update. Now let's go through to the latest chart generated on the 12th of November, and this is the situation. So there's been very little change in the Atlantic. That's the first thing to say. The cold blob is still there, and it looks like it's not really going anywhere fast. We've maybe warmed things a little bit closer to the UK, but in the deep waters, that's in the shallow waters, in the deep waters of the central northern Atlantic, that cold blob is still very much there, and there's been very little change over the past week. The northeastern Pacific has also showed very little change, so still warm anomalies up there. And then the El Niño signature, of course, it's a very strong and mature signature that we've got here from Peru over towards the central part of the actual Pacific. That is a very strong El Niño event. As I was explaining last week, this is certainly going to be the strongest El Niño event since 97-98. It may end up as the strongest El Niño event on record. 97-98 up to now is the strongest El Nino on record, and so far we've been tracking just a little bit underneath 97, 98, but it could be that this is going to beat 97, 98 in the end. Now, we've got the central part of the Equatorial Pacific, which is this area just here. This is the 3.4 region, and then we've got the eastern part of the Equatorial Pacific just here, which is 1.2. And what we're looking for, as I've been explaining through these updates, what we're looking for is for 3.4, the central part of the Equatorial Pacific, to be warmer than 1.2. When that happens, it's a central-based El Nino, and it can be a signature to enhance the jet stream through the southern part of America, and sometimes that jet stream can carry on a southerly track into Europe, allowing high pressure in the northern latitudes to develop and push cold air, certainly down into the mid-latitudes of the United States. Sometimes that can also happen into Europe as well. So we're looking for a central-based El Nino. We have probably seen a little bit of cooling in the Eastern Pacific over the past week. So if you have a look at last week's, again, and feast your eyes close to the Peruvian coast, that's what it's looking like when we did the 8th update. The 9th update looks like this. I think a little bit of cooling has occurred, actually, through that eastern part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. But not a great deal, and it is still generally just a uniform warm event from the east into the central part of the Pacific Ocean. This is from the website tropicaltidbits.com. You find it to Tropical Tidbit. You can find the link to Tropical Tidbits on the links page. This is the index graph for region 3.4, so the central part of the Equatorial Pacific, and you of course got the temperatures on the side of the chart. The dates are along the bottom. You can see it's been getting a warming trend through August, into September, into October, into November. The temperature has slowly been lifting up, and now we are currently pretty much at record-breaking levels. Actually, we're close to 3 Celsius above average through the central part of the Equatorial Pacific. That really is a very, very strong El Nino event. It probably almost is beating 97, 98. So this really is a mega super Nino event. If you have a look at region 1.2, it is cooler through region 1.2, but only really because this is such an extraordinarily strong event. So again, that's 3.4, but central Equatorial Pacific. The eastern Pacific looks like this, Equatorial Pacific. And so we're somewhere between around 2 and 2.5 degrees above average in that sort of zone. So yeah, it is a bit cooler in the eastern part of the Equatorial Pacific compared to the central area. I'm not sure it's a Modoki though, because for that you would want it to be fairly significantly cooler than average, or cooler than the 3.4 region, I should say. Still warmer than average, but significantly cooler than 3.4, and over a sustained period. So we did go quite significantly cooler in this eastern part of the Equatorial Pacific around the middle and latter stages of October, actually, but it's only for a few days, and then we got this push up in the temperature again. What we want to be seeing really is to, well, I'll get rid of these because what we want to be seeing really is to take the temperature back to here, this sort of zone in 1.2, but to sustain it over an extended period. So sort of this extended period just here, we want to be seeing the temperature like that, but in that sort of zone. So it's definitely, I don't think, is a Modoki signal at this stage, but it is warmer in 3.4 compared to 1.2. But as I say, not really a central-based El Nino signature. We will continue to see whether this does evolve into a central-based El Nino. I don't think it will be central-based, certainly for the start of winter. As we progress through the winter, it may evolve that way. And of course, what I've got to decide is, will this happen? And if it does, will it happen early enough to impact the winter, or will it happen too late, will it have any impact on winter? Because of course these things do take a little while to feed through the weather system. So, case of watch this space. Right, going on to something completely different. This is the solar disk on our side of the disk today on the sun from solarham.net. We're looking for sunspots. We haven't got many. We've only got 3. We've got one there, and one there. Solar activity is officially being designated as low today at Solarham. So it's another quiet day on the sun, and we are seeing solar activity slipping down again. This is the running graph of solar activity from last winter to present for our good friend James. James Ackland, who will know be watching. Thanks very much for all your help so far this season, James. So we can see where solar activity was last winter, which is this part of the graph just here, and this is where we are going into this winter. So quite clearly, that's where it was last winter. This is where we was this winter. Quite clearly, we are slipping down into lower solar activity. We actually can come bang up to date, which is just here, this red spot just here. Not sure you can quite work it out, but you can see that very low activity just there. We have declined over the past week to that point, and I say today, when I'm doing a video, we have got low solar activity once again. So at the moment, solar activity doesn't seem to be too much of an issue. We're back sort of around 2012, 2013 levels. We know that the solar cycle that we're currently in, solar cycle 24, is aligning very close to solar cycle 12, which was from 1878 to 1890. Solar cycle 12 had one final ramp up in activity, so it will go back up to that sort of zone over quite a few weeks. Now, we haven't got any sign of that at this stage, but if we continue to align closely with these two solar cycles, we could get that final push up in activity. If that happens over winter months, it will have a bearing on whether we reduce the chance of blocking, because the weaker solar activity, the greater the chance of northern blocking, essentially in the northern latitudes. We will continue to monitor solar activity through to the end of the autumn season. Having a look at hurricane activity next, there's been a little bit of a development with tropical activity in the Atlantic Ocean over the past week. So we've had 12 total depressions, 11 total storms, 4 hurricanes, and 2 category 3 or above hurricanes. A very quiet season, but there's just been a little bit of activity in the tropical Atlantic over the past week. Nevertheless, it's going to be another very inactive season, the third in a row. So this isn't going to have much of an impact on our winter fate. You get a lot of hurricanes, can be something that coincides with an increased chance of winter blocking, but obviously this isn't going to have any impact in those terms for this winter, because there have not been enough hurricanes, basically. Dealing with Siberian snow cover next. Now, this is less important than in the month of October, when we do look at this religiously throughout October, see how quickly things are building up in terms of snow cover across Russia. We're into November now, so it's less important, but I thought I'd just throw this in anyway. This was the situation last week. Pretty grim, actually. Snow cover had receded back into Russia. We got virtually nothing over Scandinavia, so things were going the wrong way last week in terms of Siberian snow cover. This week, though, this is the latest chart, and things have improved quite a lot. So the snow cover has pushed back towards the European border, and it's also built up a lot across central and northern parts of Scandinavia. So that's very nice to see that we are building snow up in the right places. I'm not sure really, but it makes a great deal of difference to our winter fate. Now, we're well into November. It's more important in October. But, of course, it is nice to see things going in the right direction after things went a little bit wrong last week. Excuse me. Right, just in with the QBO for the rest of the video. And we're going to combine the QBO and El Niño. But what I want to first of all talk about is the QBO. It's the quasi-biennial oscillation, and basically there's two phases of it. So you've got the westerly QBO, you've got the easterly QBO. Now, the westerly QBO tends to, or it tells you that you've got an increased chance of strengthening the zona westerlies. So a westerly QBO basically means that the zona westerlies are strengthened through the northern latitudes. An easterly QBO is the opposite. So the zona westerlies should be weaker. Correspondingly, should have a greater chance of blocking through the northern latitude. So, at its very crudest, westerly QBO is a mild winter signal, easterly QBO is a cold wind signal. That's the theory. But there are so many years that deviate from this idea that you do have to be very, very careful with the QBO. So, this grey area just here is where we currently are, and quite clearly we are in a westerly QBO. Last winter was an easterly QBO. Remember, that should be weakening the zone of westerlies, but actually it was a very Atlantic-driven winter, albeit quite a cool one. Before that, we had a westerly QBO for 13-14, that horrible wet, mild winter that I'm sure you remember quite well. So, again, that was a mild winter with a westerly QBO. And then we had an easterly QBO for 12-13 and also for 11-12. So 11-12 was generally quite a mild winter. 12-13 was generally quite a cold winter, as I'm sure you remember. So if we go back through this, we can see there are years that deviate. I mean, it's particularly true for the easterly QBO. Remember, an easterly QBO should be a signal for less in the way of zonal westerlies and more in way of blocking, so cold wind signal essentially. But if you have a look at the ECQBO 74-75, for example, we did have the ECQBO then, but that was a mild, very mild Atlantic-driven winter. And we can have a look at another one that didn't quite work out as we would have wanted. And let's have a look at 89-90, or didn't work out as we would want if we want a cold winter. So we've got 89-90 easterly QBO, but yes, you've guessed it, that was a mild winter as well. Now, some years with this do work out as planned. So we've got 86-87 easterly QBO and a cold winter. And also up here, let's try and find another one so we can go back to, well, I'm actually trying to find one, but we can go back to 62-63. That's an interesting one. That was an easterly QBO. And, of course, we know that was a severely cold winter of 62-63. It's the coldest winter since 1740. So you get the idea I'm making with this, that it is a basic idea that the westerly QBO is Atlantic-driven, easterly QBO is a colder, more block signal. But it isn't as straightforward as that. There are many years, both westerly and the easterly QBO, that deviate from this. So what I wanted to do is combine the QBO with El Niño. So I'm going to combine the westerly QBO with El Niño, and that's where my good friend Stuart Markham from website surelyweather.com comes in. And this is Stuart's website, surelyweather.com. It's a fantastic website. Do check it out if you get the opportunity. There's always loads of really interesting articles and some wonderful charts here as well. And this article, this is the latest article from Stuart, Canadian warmth could aid cold UK winter. Very interesting article. I've had a read of that myself, and do have a look at that later on when you finish with this update. That is a really good read, and a lot of fantastic information there. So, as I say, we're looking at westerly QBOs with El Niño events. Interestingly, there's not that many years to go at. We've got the years on the side of these reanalysis charts. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've only got 7 back to 1950 that are sort of westerly QBOs with El Niño events. So it could be that El Niño is more of a signal signature for an El Niño, for an easterly QBO, I should say. It could be that El Niños go with easterly QBOs rather than westerly QBOs. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to ask Stuart about that. But certainly not all that many years to go at anyway. So what we're starting with here is combining all 7 of those years in terms of a westerly QBO and an El Niño event, combining them and creating a reanalysis chart for the whole of the winters of those years. And what we see is that we have a trough of low pressure anomalously to the north and east of the country. We have some ridging through the Atlantic going up towards Greenland. It isn't northern blocking, really. Northern blocking would place the high pressure up here. So it isn't really northern blocking, but it is sort of a coldish signal, actually, out of all of these years. Tends to have a little bit of a favourability towards colder than average outcomes. But you'll see it's very much a progressive type pattern through these winters. So starting with December, this is the 500 millibar height anomaly for December of all these years with El Niños and westerly QBOs. For December, we find generally get a ridge of high pressure close to western central parts of Europe with low pressure up over the north, over the pole. So the jet stream is pushed a bit to the north. So generally quite a mild signature for December, and fairly dryish perhaps as well. Not quite sure about that, but certainly it is a reasonably mild signal to get a westerly QBO and an El Niño in December. As we go through into January, this is 500 millibar height anomaly of all these years. Just 7 of them, so say all these years, but not that many to go at. But this is the signature for January, and we find that we get the ridge strengthening to the south of us, the trough deepening to the north. So the jet stream goes something like this. So again, it's generally quite a mild signature for January as well. In fact, probably milder than December, because you could be dragging up air from the south and the southwest. But going through to February, you see quite a dramatic shift, and that's where the ridging starts to come in around Greenland. Because look at this, for February of all these years, we find a reanalysis showing this, quite a big area of above average heights around Greenland, and a trough sitting to the east of the country, and the flow, of course, is going like that. So we're pulling in cold air from the northern latitudes into that trough of low pressure. So there is definitely an idea, a theory, that an El Niño favours colder later in the winter, and certainly with a westerly QBO, that seems to be backed up by this reanalysis, and it would imply that as we progress through the winter, the greatest chance of proper blocking cold, because you can get blocking cold snaps at any point, really, but to get a locked-in cold pattern, the greatest chance is in the latter part of the winter season. Now, Stuart's tried to go in further back than 1950. The reliable data goes back to 1950, but we can go further back than that. And Stuart's gone right back to 1900 to try and find some years that have westerly QBOs with El Niño events. The data on the QBO side of things maybe not all that reliable, but the seasonal attention on me should be a little bit better. So this is what we see going back to 1900. Again, not a huge amount of years to go. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, just 6 of them. For this, going from 1950, going from 1900 through to 1950. So what we see there is that it tends to imply very unsettled conditions, actually, through the first part of the 20th century. Tend to get a lot of low pressure around not just the UK, but across the north as well. So it's a very unsettled signature with this during the early part of the century, a little bit different to what we see for the latter part of the century. That's quite interesting how the how it deviates from the first 50 years of 20th century through to the second 50 years. Now, Stuart has managed to narrow things down to 2 winters that seem to bear quite a similarity to where we are in terms of this El Niño, and also in terms of the Atlantic setup with the westerly QBO. So we're looking at 1957, 1958 first of all. This is the sea surface temperature anomaly reanalysis for November to December 1957. So there's the El Niño of 57, 58. It's not a perfect match, but there's the El Niño of 57, 58, weaker than the one we've got going on right now. And this situation in the Atlantic, again, not a perfect match, but it's the closest, I think, that Stuart could find. Remember, this is combining El Niño with the westerly QBO and also with sea surface temperature anomalies. So December 1957 played out like this. It was generally quite a mild month with low pressure dominating high pressure off there in the central part of the Atlantic. It was a westerly Atlantic driven month in December 1957. But January 1958 was significantly colder. We find the trough anomalously setting up to the east and south of the country. We've got blocking through the northern part of the Atlantic, trying to extend up towards Greenland as well. So this was a pretty cold month. There was a lot of swings going on here between cold and mild conditions, but overall it was a cold month in January 1958. 1958. And then we go through to February 1958. The blocking intensifies around Greenland, and the trough of low pressure is set to the east. So again, this is a cold signal, and that continued into March and April, I think, of 1958 as well. The central England temperatures for these months look like this. So December came out at 4.5, near normal, a little bit mild on the mild side. January 1958, 3.4, quite cold. February, interestingly, despite that anomaly map, which did look really good for cold, actually it was only 4.7, so not a particularly cold February at all in 1958. But then things did get very cold in March, with March 1958 coming out at 3.7. So it implies that the cold was a bit on-off through that winter, but overall, as we progress later, particularly to March, we did get a very cold month. The other year Stuart has managed to pin down that's quite close is the year 1941-1942. Now, this is a very interesting winter because it makes up the third and final winter of a run of 3 very severe cold winters that occurred in the early 1940s. There were 3 of them, 39-40, 40-41, and then the final one, the third and final one, was 41-42. And Stuart has created this reanalysis chart for the sea surface temperature anomalies for, this takes us through November and December 1941. So you can see the strong El Niño. This was a strong El Niño event just here. Little bit central based, little bit Modoki in nature. Also quite warm in the northern Atlantic, a bit colder to the south of it. So that's perhaps a little bit closer actually to the sea surface temperature anomalies that got going on this year compared in comparison to 57-58, which weren't really all that close, particularly in terms of the Atlantic setup. That could be a little bit better. So the winter of 41-42 panned out like this. In December, we get lots of ridging around the UK and generally to the west. Deep trough of low pressure bringing winter early into much of eastern, northeastern Europe. The jet stream is going a bit like that. So it was a particularly cold month in December 1941. Excuse me. As we go through to January 1942, look at this. This is very interesting. Have a deep, anomalous trough of low pressure across both central parts of Europe. Got a big blocking feature up to the north, particularly around Scandinavia. It was a very easterly month in January 1942. And obviously that means that the flow is going like that. So bringing bitterly cold air and lots of heavy snow in from the east in January 1942. And then February 1942 looks like this, again another very cold month, severely cold actually, February 1942, with the blocking relocating more towards Greenland, southerly tracking jet stream going on as well. It means that we bleed bitterly cold air in from the north and the east. In terms of the central temperature for those 3 months of 1941-1942. So we have December 1941, generally mild at 5.6. But look at this, we go severely cold in January at 0.9, even colder in February at 0.1. And that's that is the third and final run of 3 severely cold winters that occurred through 1940, 39-40 and 40-41. We got to 41-42, had the third and final really cold winter. Remember, that's combining El Niño with a westerly QBO. So, some quite interesting information there, but I think what we can take from it is that when you combine El Niño with westerly QBO, it's probably a signal for colder later. I think that's the definitive sort of idea from that, particularly from the progression of all the years combined, the 7 of them, or whatever it was. So for all the years combined, we did see that progression, that we get to more blocked and colder conditions later on. The fact that we look fairly close to the 2 winters of 57-58 and 41-42, of course, adds a little bit of fuel to the fire. Right, that's it. That's the 9th update done and dusted. Hope you found it interesting. How long has this one been going on for? We're nearly at half an hour, but just underneath it. So quite pleased about that. I thought I'd probably go on over half an hour with this one, but luckily I've just managed to keep it under 30 minutes again. So that's it for the 9th update. Got the 10th update coming up next week. That will be the final update, because the week after that we'll do the winter model roundup. Final one of those, and then of course we'll go into the 1st of December and do the GazService.com winter 2015-2016 forecast. So just one more winter update to come next week, and then we really do start getting towards the crunch. Okay, come back later on for the 7th Christmas update, which will be on the Christmas update page this evening. Also, Terry will have the mid-November to mid-December forecast on his page. So loads of updates going on today at Gaz Service. Do come back for all of the updates. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching.